going on, everybody? Hello again, and welcome back to another episode of the Welch Report with me, Jean-Luc Welch. That's right, make some noise, clap it up, get excited wherever you are, slap somebody upside the head, and tell them that it's time to listen to the greatest show in all the globe, the Welch Report. That's right, we got a jam-packed episode for you today with Tommy Fury beating Jake Paul. My breakdown of the fight as well as my reactions to the fight, as well as Jon Jones is coming back against Ciryl Gane for the UFC Heavyweight Championship. My goodness, you want to talk about a highly anticipated event? That is something that many people have been clamoring for, seeing Jon Jones back in the ring. I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions on that whole event and as well as how I think the fight is going to go. So, without further ado, quick plug, leave a like on the video, comment your thoughts and opinions, subscribe to the channel, and please share the channel with everybody that you know so we can help build this empire together like we've been doing. We're already at 326, 325 subscribers. Good gosh, we have just been briskly moving on up, and we can keep on moving if you share the videos and channels with everybody. We want to make this community together, invite people in. Oh yes, we talk about anything and everything. Everybody's welcome right here on the Welch Report. But without further ado, let's get right into it, because good gosh, it's time to step into the ring. That's right, it's time to fight, baby. Ring the bell, let's get it started. Round one going underway right now. Well, first off, before we cover the Jake Paul fight, quickly, I would like to cover for round one, Badu Jack becoming a 3-division world champion, knocking out Ilunga Makabu. My goodness. For those people who don't know, Badu Jack came into this fight 27-3 with 16 KOs, already a 2-division world champion at what was it, at super middleweight and light heavyweight, making his third attempt, or making another attempt for a third title at cruiserweight against the killer Ilunga Makabu, who before this fight, or before the result of this fight, 29 wins, 2 losses, 25 KOs. Mind you, Makabu was the brother who Canelo Alvarez was looking to fight, or was speculated to fight, if he had made it past Dimitri Bivol. Of course he didn't, but hey, Makabu was going to be on that list if Canelo was able to be successful at light heavyweight. Now, if you don't know who Makabu is and Badu Jack is, Badu Jack, first off, has been on the undercard of every single major event, and you probably didn't even realize it. Don't believe me? Remember when Mike Tyson came back and fought Roy Jones Jr.? Badu Jack was on that undercard. Oh, Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul? Badu Jack was on that undercard. Usyk versus Joshua? Badu Jack was on the undercard. This man just goes out of his way, or rather goes under our noses, and just every single major event just pops up out of nowhere and either takes a belt or gets a big time fight, or has one of the better fights of the night on a consistent basis, or like I said before, he takes a belt. It's just like, what the world? I've been seeing this brother everywhere. Every single time I tune into a major event, he just somehow pops up, and he did it again tonight on Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul on their undercard, fighting again Ilunga Makabu, who is a killer, legitimately a killer. This man is one of the most feared punchers, not just in the cruiserweight division, but just across the board. This brother has got, it's stupid how strong he is. It's stupid how scary he is with his power. But Badu Jack was able to pull it out. He outboxed Makabu all night long, moved around the ring, kept his distance away, was able to use his speed and combination punching to get in the middle of Makabu's punches, as well as use his speed to make sure to make Makabu have to move. As powerful as Makabu is, he is not a great mover. He's a plotter, as many people could call it. And Badu Jack used that against him, and made it so that he was a moving target, hard to hit, hard to read, and then knocked him down in the fourth, which was a shock, because many people questioned whether Badu Jack even had the power moving up to cruiserweight to be able to actually hurt Makabu. We thought it was going to be, if he did win, off a points decision, split decision, in my estimation. But he was able to counter him with a hook and or no, uppercut, excuse me. Was it hook or uppercut? One of the two in round 4. Had him tumbling into the ropes, got back up, kept on boxing, kept on moving, then it knocked him down in round 11, and then knocked him out, got a TKO stoppage in round 12. Badu Jack is 39 years old, if you did not know. This man is pushing 40, and he's still collecting belts left, right, and center. Now, I don't know if he can move up to heavyweight now. I think that this is where he needs to stay right here. Because, again, like I always have concerns with people, whenever they move up or down, it has an effect on the body. And yes, he's been gradually doing it, but the point still stands is, what's the limit going to be, especially now that he is again, 3-division world champion? Can he keep on moving up? Could he potentially go to heavyweight? Or bridger weight, if the half step up to heavyweight, if he chooses to go down that route. Is it a weight class? Is it not a weight class? I'm not sure. I've heard so many different things. I'm going to assume the next step is heavyweight if he does try, or tries to do what I would love for him to do: stay and reign, stay and rule, stay and maybe try to collect all the belts and become undisputed, potentially. I'm not saying he will. I'm not saying he can or can't. I'm saying I would like to see that trajectory for him in his career. Because the brother, even though he's 39 years old, the man just keeps on fighting at a high level and doesn't seem to show many effects of age dwindling his ability to box. So I would love to see him keep on going, keep on fighting. I don't want to see him hurt, but if he can ride this ship for as long as it can, hey, keep it afloat and keep it moving. That's what I would say. And this was, again, a phenomenal performance. Congrats to Badu Jack, making it, again, doing the work, doing the business, really just constantly surprising me, not only because he just appears everywhere, but because of the fact that this man is this old and still clicking at this high of a level in terms of fighting in the boxing sphere. So congrats to him, my goodness. I can't wait to see what's next for Badu Jack. Keep your eyes on him now. You better not be surprised next time you see him on the card, because this brother might sneak up and be on every major card for the rest of the year. Who knows? Because he just shows up everywhere. I mean, it could. I'm telling you, I can't wait to see him next time he fights, and I'm probably going to see him real soon with the way he keeps popping up on every single undercard. But now that we've gotten that out of the way, it's time for round 2. Yes, sir, the main event of the night, at least for this past weekend: Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul. And man, I was wrong about this fight, and thank the Lord I was wrong. Because I said, if you didn't watch my last video on this, I said that essentially, I picked Jake Paul to win because I did not see Tommy Fury actively not only taking the fight seriously and actually being committed to giving his all, but also I didn't see him committed to actually sticking to the game plan of using his reach, staying on the outside, using his jab in order to draw Jake Paul in and legitimately use his boxing ability to, and I quote myself, take advantage of Jake Paul's still developing boxing mind, like I said in the last show. And look what happened. Good gosh, he did everything that I asked for him to do. He actually boxed legitimately. He showed the level that he's at versus where Jake Paul is at in terms of their ability to actually understand and execute the game plan of boxing, or the fundamentals of boxing within this hollowed sport. So let's break down the fight, shall we? How in the world did this happen? Well, Tommy Fury won because of a couple things. One, like I said before, used his jab, actively used his jab and reach to keep Jake Paul on the outside. See, this is the thing. Like I said, outside of Anderson Silva, no other boxer actually used their physical gifts to their full advantage in order to make Jake Paul have to work hard. And what happened? Tommy Fury actively used his jab, used his reach, caught Jake Paul multiple times throughout the night in the middle of his punches because of his length and snappiness with his jab to interrupt his forward momentum, force him to always have to reset and have to regroup because he can't find a way to get on the inside. And it worked. it worked. It really did work. From that jab, he was able to set up combination punch. He had a bunch of flurries, good solid flurries. I think the sharpest flurries that we've seen Jake actively take, again, outside of Anderson Silva. I think Anderson Silva was missing a lot of those punches in his fight because of, again, age, and he's relatively new to the sport. Now that Jake Paul faced off against an opponent who is actually within his age group, within his weight, and has actually done this, Jake Paul does not understand effectively how to get around the jab. And Tommy Fury took advantage of that. Actually, and he looked comfortable. Tommy Fury wasn't in there tight or concerned. He was actively calm. He looked like he belonged there. He looked like this is where it was supposed to be. So he fought like he was supposed to be there, unlike we've seen other fighters against Jake Paul. He wasn't rattled, which is something that I was very concerned with Tommy Fury, because this was going to be, or rather this was, the biggest stage that Tommy Fury had ever been on in his young career. We've seen Jake Paul already reach that zenith in terms of being not only the main attraction, but with the most pressure in terms of all eyes on him. Tommy Fury hadn't been in that position before. Tommy Fury's either been on the undercard or fought bums or both. And both of which, in terms of fighting on the undercard or fighting a bum, doesn't prepare you for the level of weight that can come upon an opponent when they get into a fight, especially when you're, one, the main event, and two, fighting with your lineage, with your boxing career, and your family name on the line. And Tommy Fury, despite all of that, looked like, yeah, I'm supposed to outmatch this cat in terms of I'm supposed to outmatch Tommy Fury. Let me act like I'm supposed to do that. So there's no need for me to get all tense. I just need to fight. And that's exactly what he did. And he had head movement. He was actually feinting. He was using the ring to his advantage, constantly moving around, not staying stationary. Although there were some times we were staying stationary, posturing up, kind of rubbernecking at Jake Paul. But it wasn't just rubbernecking in terms of stationary. No, he was standing still, left, right, kind of herky-jerky movements. Not calling him his brother, but similar somewhat to his brother Tyson Fury, and kind of making Jake Paul uncomfortable. My goodness, finally making Jake Paul uncomfortable, not finally making him second guess whether or not he can throw that right hand and be confident that it will land. He actually did it, and he actually even didn't sit in the pocket. At least for the whole of the fight. He didn't sit in the pocket and just say, oh, ooh, come on, let me see what you can do. No. He understood the risk, moved accordingly. I wish he had moved to Jake Paul's left hand while Jake Paul's left hook was connecting. It's not the lethal weapon and the killer and the main thing that ends fights in terms of for Jake Paul. And so I would rather him get hit with that than get hit with the right hand. Even though he kept circling with his right, that shooter Jake Paul had caught on, he could have set up Tommy Fury to get caught with that right hand because he was circling into that direction. But hey, he didn't. And so, hey, tough loss to him. But Tommy Fury actively did everything that I thought he wasn't going to do to make this fight possible. Or rather, to make this fight happen in terms of getting in favor of him. And he won. Scorecard 76-73, 76-73, and 75-74. The first two cards for Fury, 76-73 for the first two. Last one, 75-74, was for Jake Paul. I don't think Jake Paul won any. I'm not going to say he didn't win any, but I don't think Jake Paul, it should have been a unanimous decision for me. But judges will be judges. I think the knockdown probably changed the fight. Speaking of the knockdown, Tommy Fury did a stupid thing, and it was the same thing that got Anderson Silva knocked down in this fight as well. He not lost his footing. Excuse me. He got into a position where if he got caught, he would have been off balance and fell. When he got knocked down with the jab in the 8th round, which would have been a game changer, my goodness, when I tell you, I thought when Tommy Fury got knocked down in the 8th, that this fight was just going to be either a draw or B for Jake Paul, I was throwing fits. I was having conniptions. I was yelling and screaming all throughout my house. It was terrible. It was terrible. And the only reason why Tommy Fury got caught with that, well, not got caught with the jab, but got knocked down with that jab was because of the fact that in the 8th, he did this. He made the same mistake that Anderson Silva made to Jake Paul, which was he didn't let his feet get under him. In terms of, imagine these two fists are your legs, or foot placement per se. If one's in front of the other, boom, okay, balanced, shoulder length apart, boom. Okay, cool. But when you bring both feet together and you get caught, there is a very high likelihood that you can get sent back, because now you don't have the stability needed to keep your balance once that shot connects. And that's what happened with Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury got caught with the jab. His feet were not stable when he got caught trying to trade jabs with Jake Paul. And then boom, knocked his head back. Was a good jab, but knocked his head back. Legitimate punch, legitimate counter, and legitimate knockdown. Thankfully, it didn't hurt him. Jake Paul tried to make a quick flurry. Tommy Fury actually goes in and does combination punching. And thankfully, even though he lost the round, didn't lose the fight. So now, this is where we are. This is where we are. We're living in a society where many people have been asking and clamoring for Jake Paul to lose. Will it ever happen? Can it ever happen? And a fighter finally did it. A boxer finally won. Like I said in the last episode, it wasn't that when will Jake Paul lose, it's when will a boxer win. Because all they had to do is put the pieces together and just take advantage of the weaknesses that Jake Paul has, and somebody finally did it. Now we can sit here and say two things. One, Jake Paul is a legitimate boxer. I don't care what anybody says. He's given me enough credence, enough repertoire, and enough bodies on his resume to be able to say he is a legitimate boxer. On top of the fact that the only person that could actually beat him was a boxer. Now, however, even with him being a boxer, he is a bad boxer. That's the second thing. Tommy Fury is also a bad boxer. So here's the thing about this whole fight. This was against a fighter who is below solid in terms of Jake Paul facing Tommy Fury, referencing or talking about Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury is not a great boxer. Tommy Fury is not a good boxer. Tommy Fury is not a solid boxer. Tommy Fury is a below average boxer. Not gonna say bad because he's beaten bad opponents, but he's looked bad doing it. So he's below average, just above bad, which isn't really saying much. But you showed, or this fight showed, even with a bad boxer that knows what they're doing in the ring and actually understands the fundamentals of the sport and have been around this sport, they can beat Jake Paul. So Jake Paul is a bad boxer. Now, relatively against the competition, he had a good fight. He did. Or when I say good fight, in terms of, it looked like, okay, hey, yeah, it's a boxer facing another boxer. It just looked like a bad boxer facing a below average boxer. Which the below average boxer would beat a bad boxer nearly every time. Nearly every time. But a below average boxer will never beat a solid boxer. If that escalation of talent makes sense. That's where Jake Paul is right now. Jake Paul is a bad boxer. And because of that, where does he move from here? He can't move up and try to fight another boxer with a better record than Tommy Fury, or that's on the level of Tommy Fury. Now, again, granted, full disclaimer, he does have a rematch. Let's not get it twisted. He does have a rematch clause to this fight, so it could be a situation where we see Jake Paul have to do a rematch, fight against Tommy Fury again. I mean, I'll watch it. I think I know what's going to happen, but either way, in terms of what I think is going to happen, Tommy Fury is going to win hopefully this time by knockout. It should be by knockout next time they fight. But Tommy Fury, like I said, Tommy Fury is not he is a below average boxer. And Jake Paul is a bad boxer. Jake Paul says he wants to fight again. If he fights Tommy Fury, I have him losing again. Because now I know what Tommy Fury is actually going to do. So I'm taking it seriously. Yes, he will beat Jake Paul again if they face again. I'll call it by knockout this time. Because I don't think I think he's gonna be more open to throw those flurries that really had Jake Paul in trouble throughout the fight. But if Jake Paul fights anybody else on that caliber, it's not going to be great. He's going to lose. And if he fights somebody below his caliber, where everybody's going to be saying, well, what are you doing? Why are you fighting? What you already showed that you're better than this. So it's a lose. You can almost call this a lose-lose situation for him potentially. Because now he's in limbo. Because you know where he can't, what level he can't be at. And what level he can't compete with. And we also know what level he can compete with. But the level that he can't compete with and the opposition that's most likely going to be calling him out are so close together, yet so bad. People are going to be asking and clamoring for, yo, what's going on? Why are you moving down in competition? If you get what I'm saying. Now, the typical roadmap of a boxer coming up is that they face a lot of bad opponents. But that's normally for somebody just breaking into, the boxing world, which Jake Paul is. However, the difference is Jake Paul is a big name jumping into the boxing world. It's not like a no-name who's making his way and becoming something that everybody wants to talk about. Jake Paul's already something that everybody wants to talk about going into this domain of boxing. And because of that, his scrutiny is going to be upon him because of his just cachet and name value and celebrity status is going to be a lot stricter. And now that we've seen him lose, people are going to, it's a lose-lose situation in terms of what step he takes from here. Because if he moves up, everybody's going to say, oh, he absolutely doesn't belong. If he moves down and fights lesser competition or MMA fighters again or YouTubers and or celebrities outside of KSI, because everybody just wants to see that fight happen because it's been clamored for years. Even with this loss, it's still a fight that people will pay to see. But outside of that, like, it's going to be a situation where at this point, what is the payoff for Jake Paul to continue? Beyond the rematch with Tommy Fury and the KSI fight. What is the motivation? Because based on what I saw on his Instagram, a real story or whatever, got paid $30 million for the fight, even though he lost. Made big bank, is not undefeated anymore. No longer, the shine of him and the clamoring for him to be beat now has probably died down significantly, even though it's still a high volume for people to want to see him lose. It's not nearly as big in terms of what it was at the zenith of him being in the boxing sphere. And everybody wanted to see this brother get knocked out. That was just the truth. Unbiased truth. Everybody wanted to see him get knocked out. A lot of people paid money to see Jake Paul get knocked out and or lose. One of those two happening. They want to see the knockout, but they just at minimum want to see him lose. Now that he's lost, are people going to still be willing to pay to see him fight? Are people still going to be willing to pay to watch him go up against other people at or below his competition? Because he just lost to the name that everybody knew, that everybody was, that, again, it's probably one of the biggest names that he could have gotten because he's of who that name is related to. Tommy Fury, the brother of Tyson Fury. Now, with the O no longer on his resume, with a loss on his record, is it worth the investment to keep going out, keep training, keep fighting, and potentially lose again for potentially not even a good chunk of the money, potentially getting humiliated if, like I said, if he moves up, or fighting just with the loss of interest because now you lost, and we don't see you boxing legitimately as a career. So why take any of these fights seriously? This has been a sideshow that has really gained traction in terms of a lot of people's eyes. Maybe people were tired of seeing him. They wanted to see him lose. Again, it wasn't that because they wanted to see a fight. It's because a loudmouth dude who talks a lot of smack, disrespectful, is coming up and stepping to a bunch of people. Everybody wants to see him get knocked out. That is what made this whole adventure so interesting. Because people wanted to see him lose, yet he was knocking people out. Started with YouTubers, then it went to athletes, then it went to MMA fighters. Slowly but surely elevating his competition, which again is the trajectory of a fighter. But now, he says he wants to take it seriously. Jake Paul says that he still wants to fight. He says he's going to come back. But come back for how long if he does? Because if he loses to Tommy Fury again in the rematch, because he has a rematch clause, then this ride is essentially over. It's already derailed for him. This ride is essentially over if he loses again to Tommy Fury. And or once he fights Jake Paul, once he fights KSI, let's say the Tommy Fury fight doesn't happen. If he fights KSI and loses, well then this journey's over. It's like at this point in time, it's like Sonic and the lives marker at the top of the screen. He had two. He lost one. The next time, he had one. And he lost one of his lives. He's down to 0 in terms of on the marker. Meaning, if you die again in the game, it's game over. If Jake Paul loses again, this thing's over. It's over. If he gets knocked out, it's definitely over. If he loses on points, it's over. Split decision, it's over. Unless it's a close split decision. Unless it's a split decision that he actually should have won, it's over. It is over. And I don't know where he'll go in terms of how he will continue with his competition level. Because let's say he fights Tommy Fury and loses again. The only other fight is not Jake Paul. The only other fight for Jake Paul is KSI. And after that, win or lose versus KSI, where in the world does he go? Where does he go? What does he do? Does he then just fully go in? Will he go into just full boxing mode, full into the boxing sphere and legitimately fight journeyman on a consistent basis, building up an actual resume, getting his skills cultivated more and more and more? Or is that going to be it? It's a fine line with him because there's no leeway for him to actually move. There was, like I said, YouTubers, athletes, NBA players, MMA fighters, MMA champions, one of the greatest of all time from the MMA, and then now a legitimate boxer, a below average boxer. Now that he's lost to the below average, he can only fight the bad. Because the bad are on his level. And if he goes lower, nobody's going to want to see it because now we know, okay, now you're a legitimate boxer who's fighting non-legitimate boxers and acting like it's something spectacular. Now that we've seen you in there with somebody that we all recognize as 100% about this boxing life, about the sport, grew up in the sport, and you're lost, and you move down to go fight lesser competition, It's going to be a big hullabaloo in terms of how we view, as fans, you and your career. And how we're going to view every fight from that point on. At least from my perspective. I could be wrong, absolutely. But I don't think I am. If I am, please, absolutely, comment down below and give your thoughts and opinions. But I don't think that there's a whole bunch of wiggle room for him to actually move forward outside of actively winning. And at this point, winning by knockout if he rematches Tommy Fury. Because if he loses to Tommy Fury and then moves down, well, now you're fighting less competition as a legitimate boxer. If you beat KSI, there can be a potential stain and say, hey, what the world? You're a legitimate boxer fighting a non-legitimate boxer. People might hold that against him. Or if he loses to KSI, then boom, this brother, he wasn't really all that. He was just facing old athletes, non-fighters or whatever. It's a lose-lose situation for him. And again, couples with the fact people hate him. People hate him. Warranted or not, people hate him. I'm not here to say shoot. I would say, hey, I can understand exactly why. But I'm not here to cast judgment or disparaging words on anybody. Oh no, this is just analyzing. Analyzing. Oh, it's understandable why they hate him. It's understandable exactly why people want to see him lose. And it's going to be understandable why people stop caring if he does not, one, beat Tommy Fury, and two, stay in his boxing game and fight competition at or above his level. Even though if he faces people above his level, he's going to get knocked out. If he faces people below his level, he's going to get criticized. So it's really, that's what has me questioning. What is it that Jake Paul is going to do to actively find motivation to stay doing this like he's been touting that he wants to do? Even though I think a lot of that was just bumping gums, just talking the talk, shooting the breeze, spitting in the wind, as they would say. It probably just to hype up fights and to get more interest. But I don't think from this point on, after this Tommy Fury rematch, if he loses, I think he's done. It's Tommy Fury, payday. KSI, payday. And then that's it. That's it. Win, lose, or draw. That's it. This whole thing that we all made a big fuss about isn't going to happen. Doesn't him continue in boxing. I don't see it happen. And now, thankful for what he did for the sport. Thankful for bringing all the eyes and new fans. Thankful that he's putting people on for two people like Badu Jack and Ilunga Makabu. Thankful for putting people on like Amanda Serrano, getting women's boxing up legitimately. He's had a big hand in helping elevate the sport of boxing, regardless of what you want to say about him. But in the ring specifically, I don't see this happening for any longer than 2 fights. The rematch with Tommy Fury, and then inevitably, because we know that people will lose interest in a fight if it either A, takes too long or somebody takes too many losses. And KSI, outside Tommy Fury, is the only other fight that anybody would be remotely interested in seeing now, because he never him fighting an MMA fighter. No more. We don't want to see him fight a person like Hasim Rahman, because we know Hasim Rahman will get knocked, or not will get knocked out, will knock out Jake Paul. We know that's going to happen. Anybody on that level. So outside of KSI and Tommy Fury, that's it. That's going to be it. In terms of his in-ring boxing career. So hopefully he keeps on doing what he's doing in terms of women's boxing and promoting other boxers and getting people like Amanda Serrano and others to really get the shine that they deserve. Clarissa Shields or whoever the world he works with. I don't think he works with Clarissa Shields. But either way, helping have a hand in elevating women's boxing, phenomenal. Hope he keeps on doing that. But as in-ring talent, he is bad. He's a legitimate boxer, but he's bad. He's so bad. He's horrible. He is not a good boxer at all. And against somebody that actually knows what they're doing in the ring and commits to the fundamentals of boxing, he has no shot at beating them. No shot at beating them. Tommy Fury don't even have that much power. He better be glad he didn't face somebody, again, like I seen Rottman, that actually had power. Oh, he would have been out. It would have been done. It would have been over. It would have been a bad KO. Potentially hospital level KO. That's what I see. Tommy Fury, hey, good on you. Hope you keep on fighting. Hope you actually, now from this experience, take boxing seriously outside of the other endeavors. Hone your skills. Get from a below average fighter to an average fighter to a solid fighter, and keep elevating your talent. Will it happen? Probably not. He's not going to be a world champion. I only think he's going to be a contender. But point still stands. That night, on the biggest stage of his career, Tommy Fury did what he needed to do. And that's all anybody would have asked him to do. That's all. Take care of business. Don't let the moment overwhelm you. And actively box. And he actively boxed. Ain't got a W for it. He ain't got paid for it. So I ain't mad at him. That's the breakdown of that fight. And my whole spiel on that. Now, for the next and final round. Oh boy. It's time. Where's my music? Where's that music? It's time. It's time to talk about the highly anticipated return of one of the greatest UFC fighters in history, if not the greatest of all time, Jon Bones Jones versus Ciryl Gane. That's right. It's happening. Ain't you excited? I'm telling you, I am. We are finally going to get to see Jon Jones back after 3 years of being out the ring. What will we see from Jon Jones? And just before we break down the fight, just to put this into perspective, understand what's at risk for this. One of the greatest feats that we've ever seen, not just in the UFC, but probably in any sport. One of the greater feats that we've seen in any sport. 3-year layoff, moving up to heavyweight, potentially having the opportunity to grasp the heavyweight championship of the world from a young contender, one of the most lethal strikers in the heavyweight division right now, one of the most technical strikers right now in Ciryl Gane. This could be a really incredible thing. This would solidify him, for me, as the greatest of all time if he does this. If he does this. And we've seen people do this before. Again, Sugar Ray Leonard in the boxing world. Sugar Ray Leonard went years out the ring, came back and immediately fought Marvelous Marvin Hagler in one of the greatest fights in boxing history. The first fight out of retirement, or out of coming back from retirement. I think he lost the fight, but go and watch it for yourself. I believe it's on. Top Rank probably has it on YouTube for you to see. I know ESPN Plus has it, I believe, and you can go watch it right now. It's one of the greatest fights that you will ever see. I guarantee you right now, though, Marvelous Marvin Hagler got robbed. There's a reason why he stopped fighting after that, because there was nothing else to do. He knew he wanted to fight, but he lost. He said, no, I'm done. I don't blame him. But even still, it was incredible to see. Incredible to see. And now we're having a similar thing happen with Jon Jones. The only thing is that's different. He's moving up in weight. So on the show, I believe Sugar Ray Leonard. Did he do it? I can't remember if he did or not. But moving up to heavyweight is a radical risk for anybody to take. And going up against Jon Jones is, like I said, Ciryl Gane, who, again, already had a shot at the title against Francis Ngannou, lost, but even in losing, show why he was so deadly, because he forced Ngannou to become a grappler. Forced Francis Ngannou, one of the most devastating and right now the equivalent of Mike Tyson for the UFC. The baddest man on the planet at that point in time. To stop, essentially, to stop using his best weapon, which is his hands and striking, and go to the grapple game to win the fight. Francis Ngannou inevitably goes on and wins the fight on the ground by grappling and by scoring takedowns, but even still, forcing him to completely switch up his game plan. Wow. You want to talk about a feat, even in defeat? That's what Jon Jones is going up against. Now, breaking down the fight in and of itself, what is it that Jon Jones needs to do to win this fight? Well, it's a very, I'm not gonna say simple, but it's something that we've seen Jon Jones do before. Jon Jones has to outthink Ciryl Gane and be able to take advantage of the small openings in standing exchanges. That's one of the major things. Jon Jones is one of the best strikers that this game has ever seen. Point blank, period. Whoever you want to put it on that pedestal, Jon Jones is right there. Distance control, stupid. It's great. Footwork, great. Distance management, great. Ability to read the opponent, great. There's nothing on the feet. There's nothing that Jon Jones cannot do in stand-up. It's incredible. Now, granted, he doesn't have the same reach that we've seen him have in the past. 10, 11 inches of reach, that's not the case no more. Now he's going up to heavyweight. He's still got a longer reach than Ciryl Gane, but it's only, 3-4 inches? So it's not going to be as advantageous as what Ciryl Gane is 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", just about as tall as Jon Jones. So it's a legitimate concern for him in terms of, well, now you're going up against a fighter who is, to be frank, built like you. Many of the advantages that you had are not there anymore. In terms of the height, in terms of the length, in terms of the reach. It's not the same. It's not as dominant. Now, even with that being said, one of the things that can still make this fight go for Jon Jones' favor is, even though the reach and height disparity is not nearly as egregious and as wide in terms of the gap between two fighters as it used to be, it can still be in Jon Jones' favor, because we know Jon Jones is incredible, especially in the clinch on the feet. His ability to throw elbows and pick shots on the inside, feel the opponent on him, and know exactly what to do without even if you can't see him. It's great. It's great. He's a precise striker. He's a powerful striker. From both, whether it's with his hands or with his legs. He's creative. He'll lead you into shots. He's got it all in terms of as a striker. Again, there's a reason why he's one of the greatest of all time. Some people's eyes, the greatest of all time. Wherever you want to put him at, there's a reason why he's there. There's a reason why he's there at that high of a level. And so he can, but now that even though he's got the ability to win on the feet, the one thing that can really win him this fight is if he takes this to the ground and grapples Ciryl Gane. Going back to what I said about Francis Ngannou, like I said, is even though he's not in the UFC, when he was in the UFC, was the most feared striker in arguably the history of the sport. The most feared in the history of the sport. Not the best, but the most feared. I'll stand on that. I'll stand on that hill to the day I die. More feared than Overman, more feared than Rampage Jackson, more feared than Anderson Silva, more feared than Jon Jones, more feared than Chuck Liddell. We can go on and on and on about strikers who've been in the history of the sport who have been deadly. More feared than Derrick Lewis. There was nobody in the history of the UFC that was as scary to go up against as Francis Ngannou, because his ability to catch anybody and everybody was so not only dynamic, but was so paramount. It was so much of a threat that it just overshadowed everything else. Everything else. The Deontay Wilder of the division and of the sport at that point in time. In terms of just you don't want to go against them because you know at any given point you can get clipped just like that. Like just at any given point in time. I believe Derrick Lewis has the most knockouts in UFC history. Even still, Francis Ngannou was the scariest person in the UFC at the point in time when he was there. Even though Ciryl Gane forced him on the ground, Ciryl Gane was still able to be taken down. And Francis Ngannou, for everything I said just about him as the scariest person in the world, in the UFC world, he was and is not a great grappler. What made him so scary and fulfill the prophecy, quote unquote, of, oh my gosh, this man may be unstoppable, is what was it? Was it Miocic? When he faced off against Miocic, won the heavyweight championship and defended Miocic's takedown attempts. It was takedown defense. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, you can't take him down. He may not be able to take you down, but you can't take him down. And because of that, boom, there's no way to beat him. There's no way to beat him. That's what it was. But it wasn't because he was a great grappler. He just understood and learned how to actually defend takedowns. But when he was forced to actually go and take somebody else down because he was getting outstruck by Ciryl Gane, he was able to have success strictly off of brute strength. Not even great technique, just brute strength. He was able to bring him down. And it was impressive. Again, it was another facet to Francis Ngannou's game that was like, oh shoot, it makes him even more of a hard fighter to beat. Just adds on to the aura of fear that Francis Ngannou has. But the point still stands. He is not a great grappler in any way, shape, or form. And Ciryl Gane, many people argue, and I'm in that camp as well, is one of the, how do we put this nicely, worst grapplers in the division in terms of the contenders in the heavyweight division. Of the contenders in the heavyweight division, he may be not the best or the weakest of contenders in the division. Jon Jones went to war with DC Cormier and took DC down. And DC is one of the greatest grapplers that we've seen in the sport. Mauled Chael Sonnen. We can go on and on and on. There's so many people that he's just grappling. He's just dominated. Again, didn't dominate DC, excuse me. But was able to actually take him down and actually compete with him. Which something few people can say. He never ended in a knockout. First one decision, second one knockout, both in the wins. Either way, went and was able to grapple with DC, and has taken down many other great grapplers in their primes when they went against him. He is a phenomenal grappler and wrestler. Ciryl Gane is not. And Ciryl Gane was able to get taken down by somebody that is not great at grappling indoor wrestling. The technique between Jon Jones and Francis Ngannou is so big in terms of the gap between them. You best believe that Jon Jones' best situation to be able to beat Ciryl Gane better not be to strike. It better be to take him to the ground and use his innate ability just to know what to do at the right point in time. And shoot, submit him if he can. But use that grappling to your advantage. Don't be content with saying, oh, you're a great striker. Guess what? I'm Jon Jones. I can fight anybody in any style, which he can. But that doesn't mean that he should. I can beat you at your own game. Let's go at it. He shouldn't do that. Jon Jones had better use his grappling and take Ciryl Gane down. He better take him down. Better wear him down. Better use Ciryl Gane's weakest link early and often. And don't let it get to a point where he's got to, okay, this isn't working. Now it's time to grapple. Don't let it get to that, because this is the heavyweight division. And this leads straight into what can potentially be one of the bigger problems with Jon Jones moving into heavyweight and how he can lose this fight. We know he can win on the feet, even though it's going to be hard, because Ciryl Gane is one of the most technical fighters in the UFC heavyweight division right now. That's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth. And we know that Jon Jones can absolutely, if it's Jon Jones that we think is going into the ring, can out-grapple and out-wrestle Ciryl Gane. We know that's the truth. We know that's the case, and we know that's a fact. But Jon Jones can still lose this fight because of the fact that he can get knocked out. It's a legitimate threat, because what people don't understand, or what people may fail to see if you're new to the sport of combat sports, is the fact that as you move up, you can get caught at any point in time. And when you move up to heavyweight, it's scary. It gets scary out there, because now any punch can take you out. From the worst striker in the world in the heavyweight division can take you out at heavyweight, because it's just big men throwing punches. And at any given point in time, if you get caught wrong, you're done. I get that can happen for any other weight class, but heavyweight specifically, brother, from a jab to getting barely clipped with a hook at half the speed and half the power, it can take you out. A fighter can have 0 gas tank, another fighter can have 100, and you catch him, you're done. That's the danger of heavyweights. And Jon Jones moving up to heavyweight can potentially be a very dangerous thing, because I don't know how his chin's going to be able to take those shots. I don't know how his body's going to be able to take punchery. We've never seen him at this weight. We've never seen him go up against people this heavy. We haven't. We haven't seen him go up against strikers this dangerous in terms of knockout power. Especially somebody like Ciryl Gane. Shoot, they were, who was it? Was it Michael Bisping? Or somebody, was it him? Somebody, I think it might have been Michael Bisping I heard talking about this fight. He was essentially saying that, what was it that he was saying? Doggone it. Don't tell me I lost my train of thought. I can't remember what he said verbatim. But essentially, moving up to this big of a weight class, you don't know what your body can take up until it takes it. And if it takes you wrong, buddy, you're done. And that's what can happen with Jon Jones. He can get caught on the chin. He can get caught behind the head. He can get caught behind the ear. He can get caught in the body. And he can't stand it. Potentially. And going up against one of the more precise technical strikers in the sport, in the heavyweight division today, in Ciryl Gane, you can get touched. People can, this is what he said, doggone it. He might not have faced was it him or Keith Wonderboy Johnson that said this? I can't remember. One of the two. One of them said, and I tend to agree, Jon Jones hasn't faced a technical striker like this since Gustafsson. He hasn't faced a technical striker since Gustafsson, in terms of technique and ability to pick their shots right all the time. His toughest fight was against Alexander Gustafsson. Again, went to the Hall of Fame for the UFC for again, one of the greatest fights the UFC's ever had. He hasn't faced somebody this technical since Alexander Gustafsson. And you can argue Ciryl Gane's more technical and is a better striker than Gustafsson. And on top of the power, on top of the technique, he's got the power of being a heavyweight. And I think you can I think he's more fluid than Gustafsson. He's got better footwork. Potentially he's just as fast in terms of striking as Gustafsson. And potentially more precise than Gustafsson. So you got all these things that he's going up against a better Gustafsson. You're fighting a better Alexander Gustafsson. And you already were, again, hotly contested going up against the actual Gustafsson. Good gosh. I mean, this could be bad. This could be bad. And then on top of that, what is Jon Jones going to be like once he steps into the ring in terms of how is he going to be able to handle his body? The man's what? Somebody say he's walking around at 260, 240, whatever the case may be. The mid to high 200s. With that, brother, can your body withstand having all that weight on your frame? Can you legitimately keep up? Or will you gas out early in the fight? Now, granted, he's done it right. He's spent 3 years bulking up, training, taking time off in order to be prepared to actively handle moving up to heavyweight. Done it the best way possible. The best way possible. The only thing I don't like is the fact that he's facing Ciryl Gane as his first fight, which he had fought a lesser opponent in his induction, then went on to challenge him. But, hey, he's doing what he's doing. Point still stands, however, the brother still has to account for the fact, and you as fans have to account for the fact that he may not be able to be the same Jon Jones that we've seen him be because his body may not have the ability to do what we know the old Jon Jones has the capabilities to do. Why? Because now all that weight, all that mass, all that newfound muscle may hinder his ability to actually be as fluid as we know he can be. On top of the fact, like I said, with stamina, the brother may not be able to do the things that he wants to do because he may gas out. And his body may not let him do those things that we know he can do for long, if at all. Because it takes too much energy, especially in the heat of a fight. Training camp and fighting is two completely different things. They're two completely different things. It's two completely different levels of fatigue. Those who train right and are able to mastering in-fight stamina, great. Those who don't, it's apparent. It's apparent. And we don't know what Jon Jones is going to be when he steps into the ring with his stamina. Like I've said in the past with Canelo Alvarez, when he moved up against Dimitri Bivol, what happened? He looked nowhere close to the Canelo that we know can be and what we've seen. He didn't look like the undisputed champion Canelo Alvarez. Again, throwing big looping shots one shot at a time, not throwing combination punches like we know he can do. Head movement wasn't as crisp and as sharp, wasn't actually using a lot of head movement at all, more so covering up and blocking. And had to rely on power shots instead of actually setting up with fluid combinations because his body was going to gas out even quicker if he went and just threw combination punches when he had Dimitri Bivol on the ropes or when he was trying to come in. He looked like another version of the fighter that we know he can be. That's what happened to Canelo. It affected him greatly, his ability to fight. Now we know the limits of him as a fighter. We don't know if that's going to happen to Jon Jones, but we do know that it's a possibility because we've seen it happen in the past with other people. Moving up and moving down in weight has effects on the body. And if it affects you wrong, and if you're not prepped for it, it can be detrimental, fight ending in some cases, because now that you don't have the stamina, boom, shots that maybe wouldn't have affected you maybe are going to affect you even more. Let alone the fact that you're moving up, and now those shots that may affect you even more are heavyweight shots, which even further elevates the risk. These are all the things that can potentially go wrong for Jon Jones. It can. And I'm not going to get into the drugs or the pictograms, whatever the wasn't going on. All the outside stuff is outside stuff. Whatever the case may be. Hey, that's what happened. That's life. That's life. At this point in time right now. You hate that that's life, but that's life. It happened. It has happened. It's in the hopefully it's in the past permanently for Jon Jones, but it is a part of his career. With that being said, has that caught up with him? And will it catch up with him in this fight? The reason why I say that is because when he, in his, what was his last fight? Doggone, let me make sure I got this right. Jon Jones' last fight was against, was it Reyes? Let me make sure. Dominic Reyes, yep. Jon Jones' last fight was against Dominic Reyes. And it went to decision and he won. Many people were arguing that he lost that fight. And there's been a couple fights that he's had that were not his best outings. This is after the drugs and stuff were in his past. Hopefully he's put that behind him, like I said before. But in his last couple outings, like against Thiago Santos, for example, it hasn't been the same dominant Jon Jones that we've seen before. Some people could say that, oh, he's just fighting up to the level of the competition. And if it's not up to par, he may not give everything. Hence, it might be closer. We've seen that happen with fighters. That could happen. That's a potential, absolutely. Doesn't change the fact that if that is the case, where does he view Ciryl Gane? Because if he fights up to the caliber that he thinks that Ciryl Gane is and underestimates him, well, boom, this is going to be ending the knockout. This is going to end in a knockout or unanimous decision for Ciryl Gane, if that is the case. But even if that's not the case, if he does take everything seriously, if he does go and put his all, like I think he's doing in this fight, it doesn't view Ciryl Gane as just somebody beneath him. Will still his past catch up to him and cause him not to be able to perform at his best? Will that be a legitimate thing that finally, definitively adds a real loss to his record? Again, he's 26-0. Yes, or 26-1. Excuse me. That one loss is a disqualification in a fight that he was dominating. So you can really look at it as 27-0. Will this be the first real loss that he has? And will it come because of all the stuff that happened outside the ring with Jon Jones now has caught up with him to the point that now his innate talent is and know-how of the game isn't enough to carry him because now his body isn't where it used to be? That's one of the real things that can happen. It's one of the real threats that can happen. Legitimately. It's a possibility. I hope it's not the case, but that's what can happen. Outside life catching up with in-ring talent. It's happened before. It's happened before. It can ruin careers. And because of that, it's not out the question for you to ask whether or not we're going to see the same Jon Jones that we know we've seen before. Not just because of moving up in weight, not just because of potentially the body not be able to withstand all that muscle in an actual fight, all that extra mass potentially impeding his ability to fight like the Jon Jones that we've seen before. But will the outside shenanigans, as we'll call it, to put it lightly, hinder his ability to actually perform in the ring, despite him wanting to give it his all? All this is a real possibility. And if he loses, does it hurt his legacy? No, it doesn't. He's still regarded as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, UFC fighter of all time. It doesn't. This loss will not hurt him in the realm of his career. No. We are, like I've said in the past, with boxers, with combat sports in general, we love seeing fighters challenge themselves. We want to see them go and push themselves. We want to see them go and strive to be better than what even we think they can be, what they think they can be. Push the limits of what your body can do. We respect that. We applaud that because we know how much of a chore, of a strain, and of a risk that is for the fighter. We respect it. Never going to give credit for somebody that loses when they're taking risks like that. But despite that, while this won't hurt his legacy, it will be the beginning of us asking questions of, is the Jon Jones that we knew gone? Just like with Anderson Silva when he lost. There was a clear discrepancy of the Anderson Silva that looked unbeatable versus the Anderson Silva that was now competing. You saw it. It was not the same Anderson Silva. Whether you want to call it life and money dulling his fight senses, making it so that he wasn't as hungry, which can potentially be with Jon Jones, or just wear and tear, whatever the word you want to say it is. It can happen. It can happen. And will it happen for Jon Jones? And even if the fire is there, will it just be that he was just too inactive and not, he wasn't, his prime years have now finally passed him by? That's the concern that we're talking about in terms of Jon Jones. Is it now the point in time where we look at it and say, Jon Jones, despite what we know you can do, you're just not that guy anymore. You're no longer Bones. You're just Jones. Jones is still great. Jones is still good. Jones can still beat a bunch of people, but Bones Jones could beat anybody. Are you still Jon Bones Jones? Or are you now just Jon Jones? Is there going to be a drop-off in you? And that may be uncontrollable. For everything that we want to say about everything that he can do to win, like wrestling, like grappling, like still using his creativity as a striker, like being able to catch Ciryl Gane on the inside, like being able to catch Ciryl Gane coming in, like using his ability to attack the leg and attack the knee, even though some people say attacking that knee is illegal, or should be illegal, excuse me. Attacking the kneecap can injure somebody permanently for the rest of their life. Maybe that should be banned from the UFC. Hey, that's a conversation for another day. But right now, we know all those tools in the tool shed of Jon Jones are at his disposal, from what we can tell. But can he actually use them? We're going to have to see, because potentially age and just inactivity may just shut off a lot of those tools. That while they're still at his disposal, he's banned from using them by his own body. All of this are legitimate concerns for Jones in this fight. We could either see one of the greatest feats that we've seen in UFC history, or we could see the beginning of the end, potentially, for one of the greatest fighters that we've ever seen, if not the greatest fighter that we've ever seen. Again, one loss doesn't ruin his career. If he loses, like I said with Canelo, the same thing, and like I said for Roy Jones Jr., could be the same thing for Jon Jones' situation. He found out his limit. He found out where he can compete at his best, and what his body will actively allow him to fully be him. Moves back down and continues to fight there. No problem. That can happen. That can happen. A loss moving up doesn't hurt. Move back down, get back comfortable, and fight like you want to fight. Hey, great. Do what you want to do. Absolutely. It's a viable option. But if it doesn't happen, but if he does lose, excuse me, lost my train of thought for a second. But if he does lose and moves back down, that brings up a whole nother can of worms. Like with Roy Jones Jr. Oh, you're not the same fighter anymore. You pushed your body too far. Even if he does win and performs, and let's say that Francis Ngannou doesn't come back to the UFC. If he drops the belt, moves back down, it may be the same thing like with Roy Jones Jr., that his body just gave out on him. It was never the same, and it was too big of a shift that his body just was not the same. Reaction time not the same. Whole fight style not the same. And even if he wins and stays at heavyweight, how long will his body be able to sustain the Jon Jones that we know up until it finally gives out? Because I don't think his body can. I don't know. Let me rephrase that. I don't know whether his body can withstand that much extra mass, even though he put it on the right way over a long period of time. I don't know how long he can sustain that level of extra mass for a heavyweight career before his body just says, I can't do it. Before he just can't perform. All of these things are legitimate concerns from my perspective. But in terms of winning the fight, he can win it grappling. He can win it on the ground, definitely. If he takes it to the ground, that probably is going to be his best ability to win because of his incredibly high acumen in the world of wrestling. If he grapples on the feet, again, with his ability to fight in the clinch, phenomenal. Oh yeah, he can win in there. He can win on the feet, absolutely. But he can also get caught on the feet. And one shot from Ciryl Gane can end the night. It can. And whether his body can withstand the power of Ciryl Gane is a question that needs to be asked. I have, for prediction, I have Jon Jones winning by submission in the 4th or 5th round. It's going 5 rounds, correct? Yeah, it's going 5 rounds. I have Jon Jones winning by submission in the 5th round. Because, again, of that wrestling acumen. And he submitted other people before, like Lyoto. How do you say his name? Lyoto Machida. Excuse me if I'm saying his name. Oh my gosh. I don't know why I kept messing it up. What the world? Wow. Excuse me. Lyoto Machida, when he choked him out. Phenomenal. Can that same thing happen with Ciryl Gane? Absolutely it can. All these avenues are built for Jon Jones to win. But will it happen is only predicated on 2 things. 1, if he can, like I said, withstand the power of Jon Jones. And 2, if we're going to see the same Jon Jones that we know we've seen before. Because if we're not seeing that, we're talking about a whole different fight. Like with Conor McGregor when he came back, he just didn't look the same. Fight style he had to completely revamp his fight style for the worse. karate stance to boxing stance. Knocked out. We've seen the downfalls of fighters take a similar trajectory like we're seeing with Jon Jones. Could this be the time where we say, yo, you're just not the same guy anymore? I hope that's not the case. We're going to have to see what happens. Again, if he loses. If he wins, it'll be by submission, in my estimation. If he loses, it'll be by knockout. If he loses, it'll be by knockout. Or unanimous decision, because Ciryl Gane will be able to potentially defend the wrestling and grappling just enough to where his striking on the feet potentially will be too much for Jon Jones. Not because of ability, but more so, even though he has the ability. Again, like I said, one of the most technical UFC fighters today in the heavyweight division. But more so, the threat and feeling the power, if you're Jon Jones, may dissuade you from being as active on the feet as we know you can be. And because of that, you may lose because you weren't able to be as active. All these things are possibilities. But I still have Jon Jones winning by submission in the 4th round. Capping off one of the greatest feats I've seen in UFC history. 3-year layoff, coming back, moving up to heavyweight, and winning against a contender who forced one of the greatest or one of the most feared fighters in heavyweight history to change their whole game plan and their whole fight style. If he can do that, my goodness, we're talking about, and I will concede him as the greatest of all time. Right now, I have Anderson Silva at his peak. I don't think anybody was better than Anderson Silva. Not George St. Pierre. Even not Jon Jones. But if Jon Jones does this, more than happy to say Jon Jones is the greatest UFC fighter we've ever seen. More than happy to say. Better than Demetrius Johnson. Better than anybody. Better than anybody. I will say that he's the greatest of all time. No qualms with saying that at all. But only time will tell, and I can't wait for that fight to happen. March 4th, my goodness, we are 2 days away from a monumental event. And trust and believe we'll be back right here to cover it right here on the Welch Report. So, this has been another episode of the Welch Report. I've been so happy to be with you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining in. Again, please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, share with everybody that you know. We're available on every major podcast platform as well. And you can check us out anywhere at any point in time. Any given place where it is, we're not there, tell me and I'll get right on it. This has been the Welch Report. I've been your host, Jean-Luc Welch. You've been my beautiful viewers and listeners. We're going to get out of here. Peace and love. We out.